What's up, everybody? Live here from Florida. Daylight today for both of us in the background, as you can see. Welcome to Big Blue Avenue. This is our Week 17 show. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. I'm Tom Scavetta, joined alongside Sam Cardona, the girl who talks sports. Sam, different backgrounds for us today, but a similar vibe, unfortunately, compared to the last couple weeks. You got to watch Christmas Day against Philadelphia. I caught the first half, missed the second half. First off, how are you doing, and what's your overall consensus following the game?
I feel like I would have rather have had the Eagles kind of ruin us because we had so much hope in that game and it was a lot more hope than I thought we were going to have. Um I was very angry at the end of that game. There was several factors that had me feeling just angry. I stood up for the entire fourth quarter. I didn't sit down. I was just I was so I was like, we could win this right now. Like we had everything we needed to win that game. And there were missed calls by the referees. There was sloppy play. And one of the biggest things for me at the end of this game was Darren Waller. He caught the ball, converted a down, I believe, and just laid on the ground and just wasted the time on the clock. And we had seconds to go. And I was like, why isn't he getting up? And it just seemed like lack of knowledge of what was going on in the game, which is something that's incredibly important for players to know. And he just didn't really realize what was going on. So I was very upset with Darren Waller. In situations like that, you need to utilize all of the time that's on the clock and just poor clock management. So that was my biggest takeaways from this game. And my God, it was just, it could have, we could have won. We could have done it. And it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I remember the play you're talking about. What really frustrated me too is at the end of the first half when I think Okereke slapped the ball from Hertz or something, and there
Mhm.
was a flag called, but there were 3 seconds left, I think, 3 or 4 seconds left, and the Eagles had no timeouts, and the half should have expired right there and then, and the Eagles were able to get 3 points out of it. That really frustrated me.
Mhm.
Um, it was a tough Christmas. I was happy they played well, but I'm not going to give this team points for playing well and losing. Um, there's a lot that went well, but also more that went wrong in this game. And I want to hear your thoughts on the benching of Tommy DeVito, which, quite frankly, I was shocked by the benching of DeVito. Looking at the stats, uh, DeVito was 9 of 16 in the first half for 55 yards. He was sacked once. His average depth of target was low. I think his lowest pass went 1.1 yards.
Yeah.
And the Giants trailed 20-3 at halftime. And then when Tyrod came in, Sam, it seemed like they were able to score 22 points in the second half, but still not enough to win. I don't really get the substitution there. I have a theory behind why Dable might have did it, but I want to hear from you. What's going through your mind during that swap?
I'm interested to hear your theory. But honestly, I was also a little bit surprised. When I saw Tyrod into the game, I thought I had missed an injury. Like I thought, oh my God, did Tommy get hurt? Did something happen? And then they show him on the sidelines and he's just kind of standing there. And I was like, he doesn't look hurt. And I was very confused for a little bit because yes, while we weren't putting points up, while it wasn't the best game out of Tommy DeVito, I was like, it's not like he did something that was so outrageously bad that he had to sit. Um I'll always love seeing Tyrod in the game. It's very obvious that he could close out a game for us if he just had a little bit more. But it was very odd, and unfortunately my brother got me a Tommy Cutlets t-shirt jersey for Christmas. I was so excited. I was going to put it on, and then all of a sudden the kid's on the bench and I was like, well, I'm one of many football Giants fans in the universe this Christmas who had to very silently put away our Tommy Cutlets jersey for a hot second. But yeah, it was a little bit confusing. I know that Tyrod's starting next week. Um, it just kind of seemed very abrupt. But I'm interested to hear what your theory is.
Absolutely. So I'll give you my theory in a moment, but to piggyback off your cutlets gift. So my
Yeah.
brother, also named Danny, I got him a DeVito jersey. I think I might have showed you the old throwback jersey
Yeah.
that we've worn a couple times this year, and he opened it late Christmas night. And when I heard about DeVito getting benched, I was in the car listening on the radio, and like you, I thought maybe an injury, maybe something happened. It shocked me. Now, knee jerk reaction. What is Brian Dable doing? This is so frustrating. Why are we doing this?
Right.
What's the game? Well, I feel like the Giants. I'm trying to put myself, Sam, in the mind of Brian Dable. I think he's afraid of losing the locker room because, unfortunately, look, I don't think DeVito deserves to get benched. I don't. I mean, you have to stick with your guy through the good and through the bad. But Dable said something very important when he named DeVito the starter. He gives us the best chance to win. And I guess in the second half, down 20-3, he's thinking, well, Tyrod probably gives us the better shot to come back in this game. Our playoff hopes are on the line. I don't want to lose the locker room. So I think you can argue that it made sense in his mind, but as your average fan or even like one of us content creators that we are, I don't understand it at all. That was my theory behind it. Now, moving into week 17, Taylor's been named the starter. And that's where I'm starting to think, well, why could he do this? The Giants are eliminated, right? You want to find out what you got in DeVito. But in Dable's mind, he might have already figured out what he has in DeVito, and the evaluation is over. Now for this year. Now I think Dable might feel as if Tyrod Taylor gives us the best shot to evaluate players like Jalen Hyatt, a rookie who has not gotten many targets this year, under 20 catches on the season. DeVito has not thrown the ball to Hyatt that much because his offense has been more targeting Darius Slayton, Darren Waller, Daniel Bellinger, Wandale. And I think with Tyrod, Sam, I think Dable's thinking, all right, we have this guy for 2 more games. We're paying him a lot of money. We're out of the playoffs. I see what I got in DeVito. Let's see what Tyrod can do with Wandale, with Hyatt, with Hodgins. So that's kind of my theory. Do you agree with that? Do you still disagree with the decision, but you might see what he's trying to do there? Because obviously, we want to see DeVito start. Both of us have made that very clear. But there's my theory.
I understand. Like, I feel like if either thing was chosen, if we had Tommy DeVito starting or we have Tyrod starting, I think both make sense. To have Tommy in to see what he's capable of. Obviously, we're dealing with a lot of quarterback stuff right now. That makes sense. But also, there is a huge part of this team, which is the offense, which is we're trying to figure that out as well. Like, how many years in a row can we draft a wide receiver? So I agree with your theory. I think that that's a very good theory to have. Tyrod is a veteran. It's obvious he can get the ball into the guy's hands. He can do what he needs to do, and that does make a lot of sense. And I'd really love to see the things that Jalen Hyatt could do because his potential is so high, and we've seen that through this entire season, even with the limited amount of catches that he's had. And even guys like Darren Waller, like, yes, we know what he's capable on the Ravens and on the Raiders, but we don't really know what it's like to have him on the Giants. Because not only was he injured, he wasn't getting targeted as much when he wasn't injured, and like obviously there are things that we need to work out with him as well. So yeah, I get it, but Tommy DeVito is like the show-stopping, sexy headline name that we want to see. But Tyrod Taylor right now, he's gonna do what he's got to do.
Yeah. Taylor in the second half, though, was not that impressive. Half of his passing yards came on a 69-yard touchdown pass to Darius Slayton. Other than that, he realistically went 6 of 15 for like 60 something yards. So I'm not going to sit here and say he necessarily played well. But what he did do, he marched the team downfield into Eagles territory. Unfortunately, he got picked off on the final play of the game. It was kind of like a line drive fastball pass. Again, when you're going up against Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, you only have so much time in the pocket. But unfortunately, it was picked off by Keely Ringo, a player that Jordan did mention on last week's show to look out for, replacing Darius Slay. And then the Giants lose by a final of 33-25. And I think the reason why, too, they might have switched to Taylor. I mean, Saquon just could not get going. It was just such a one-dimensional thing. I mean, Saquon had 80 yards and a score, but he touched the ball 23 times. That's less than 4 yards a carry. I mean, that's not okay. And part of it's the O-line. I thought Pugh got wrecked. It's funny. It takes us, Sam, 6 offensive linemen just to get the ball like 3 to 5 yards down the field. I mean, I have never seen a backup offensive lineman play as much as Mark Lewinsky has.
Yeah.
Constantly checking in his. It's kind of funny to watch every week, but at the same time, it's sad. It's like, what are we doing out there? Like, realistically, come on.
Yeah. And we gotta shout out Adoree though for his score for the pick six that happened there. Obviously we have not been Adoree's biggest fan this past year, but he did that, and I was at that point I was just like, oh my god, like this is like, it was like, felt like that was the turning point for the game. Like I was like, after this, like we could win this game. And that's when I started getting a little bit more excited, and that's when the hope started rising up. And then as the game went on, it started to fall and fall and fall. And I was like, oh my God, we were so close. But I'm actually interested to see what this matchup is going to be like in MetLife in the final week of the season, because again, this game was winnable, and it'll be very interesting to see if the Eagles end up start benching some of their starters, playing some of their starters. Maybe we do get a win in the last week of the season. Who knows?
Yeah, and the Boston Scott curse is now over. I think Jordan mentioned it last week.
Yes.
She has not been the biggest fan of Brian Johnson as the offensive coordinator. Boston Scott got 1 touch the entire game.
I know. Normally we see it a lot. Like normally he's out there like scoring like 4 touchdowns on us, and it just didn't happen this year.
I wonder how much money was lost on bets for him to score a touchdown. I'm sure, like, I saw people placing like $30 bets on him to score. I'm like, all right, this is crazy. I have a feeling I had a feeling going in, Sam, he wasn't going to score. I don't know about you. I just had that feeling. Eventually, it has to come to an end.
Yeah, if I were a sports bettor, I probably would have bet on that. But yeah, it was interesting, and there was a couple times too. I think, was it Boston Scott who was returning the kicks? I'm not entirely sure, but there was a fumble on a punt that the Eagles dropped, and I was like, oh my God, like they looked sloppy, at least on special teams. Like it really wasn't looking good, and the Eagles didn't look as scary as they were in the beginning of the season. I don't know if that has to do with injuries. I don't know if that has to do with the coaching, but honestly, I mean, we'll move on in just a bit, but I don't think the Eagles have Super Bowl capabilities as people thought they did.
No, I mean, it's really tough, right? I mean, Goddard 8, Devontae Smith had that 1 touchdown, Swift scored, but the Giants won the turnover battle. So you're right, Sam, and we exactly weren't perfect on offense or defense in this game.
Right.
Our special teams was a shit show. I mean, we saw Mason Crosby drill a 50-plus yarder, which was great. Great to see Salt and Pepper back in an NFL uniform, especially ours. And then Jamie Gillen leaves the game with 2 injuries. So what type of season have we had where the Giants go through 4 kickers and a banged up punter?
I know. I was explaining that too, like to my dad on Monday, and I was just like, "You don't get it. We've had seen so many people kick for us this year."
But ultimately, Giants fall short, 5-10, eliminated from playoff contention.